This is TW Wrestling Talk, coming off the first episode of Raw, following Payback pay-per-view, and can't help but notice it was a rather eventful episode of Monday Night Raw. Some people have even gone as far to say it was the best Raw of the year, or if not, one of the best Raws of the year. And yeah, I'd say it's one of the best Raws of the year, but you know, at the end of the day, I don't think that's saying quite too much. But anyhow, it was an event. It was more so an eventful Monday Night Raw. Whereas last week you had a lot of a lot of interesting matches on Monday Night Raw last week, and this week you didn't really have that. But you had some notable, turns and notable, foreshadowings and some a share of surprises on this episode of Monday Night Raw. Unfortunately, on the downside, Ryback was not a part of this episode of Monday Night Raw.
Yesterday I did pull out.
Unfortunately, with this whole, that whole match the other night with him and Cena, I guess it was an out for, a way for Ryback to, kind of get his summer vacation a little bit, or some kind of little time off over the summer, as it seems like a lot of people on the roster have had, or even had early. So, therefore, it's unfortunate. Before I really talk about what went down on Raw, it's really unfortunate, in my eyes, how, eight straight pay-per-views now it's been that Ryback has not won, that he's been a part of, and to me that's a flat out disgrace. When you've been building him up to face John Cena not once but twice. I mean, I don't understand. A lot of people, are questioning, like, oh, so what do they do with Ryback now? What do you guys think they should do with Ryback now? I'll tell you what they do. They have him start beating people for a change.
I agree.
I mean, for crying out loud, people want to compare him to Goldberg. I don't see how you can do that right now, because Goldberg actually won at pay-per-views. It's a sad joke, but it's true. I mean, Ryback maybe won at one or two pay-per-views since debuting as Ryback. I mean, he before he faced CM Punk at Hell in a Cell, he did not really see any pay-per-view action. Maybe, he may have faced like Jinder Mahal at Night of Champions, or I'm not totally sure if even that. He may have, before that match with CM Punk at Hell in the Cell, he may have faced, somebody or a pair of jobbers at one pay-per-view. Prior to that, in one, of course. But, it's amazing to me how they were building him up back then, like, oh man, he's undefeated. And then it's like, he loses at Hell in a Cell, and it's like, never to win at a pay-per-view again. And that's part of WWE's, sometimes inability to properly book somebody that you should be building up to be a future main event player for years to come here in this company. And they have failed miserably at it. I don't quite understand it. It's almost like people now don't even care about Ryback because they expect him to lose. They don't expect him to beat John Cena. Look at the track records of the two guys. It's like Cena, they can never have him put somebody over clean or anything. If he's going to lose the title to someone, it's probably going to be in a silly, cheap way. And Ryback, who's he gone over at a pay-per-view that the past, 2/3 of a year? I mean, it's incredible, and it's horrible. And like I said, they need to have him beat people. I mean, I don't know how long he's going to be off now. Hopefully he'll be back next week. But unfortunately he wasn't there last night, and that leads me to believe he could have a little bit of time off. Maybe he'll be back next week. I don't know. But it's unfortunate the way they've been booking Ryback, and I hate. It'll be a disgrace to me if they just bump him back down in the mid card or something, and then try to rebuild him. Like, it's stupid. He should be a main event guy. He should be established in that role already. And it's, to me it was time to put the WWE Championship on him. I don't care what people say, because it would have immediately cemented his status. I don't understand that. Like when Daniel Bryan became World Heavyweight Champion, it sort of cemented his status in that way. As because now once Daniel Bryan gets pushed back in the main event picture, it'll feel like, yeah, he belongs there. There'll be no question about it. So it's a shame, and it's like the John Cena problem continues, and unfortunately it had to continue the other night at Payback with a so-called ambulance with probably one of the weakest roofs you could ever imagine would be on an ambulance, but that wasn't my idea. That was one of WWE's silly, illogical ideas, and people want to say, oh, it was so cool to it was cool to see it, and I'm thinking, dude, that's not logical at all. Okay, the roof. They don't make ambulance roofs or car roofs for that matter out of freaking cardboard. I mean, are you kidding me? Well, anyhow, let's move along here on to some better. Before we move on to some better things, I mean, Monday Night Raw. It started off, with Alberto Del Rio. I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. Here we go again. Another lackluster start to Monday Night Raw. But fortunately, later on in that promo, that typical Alberto Del Rio monologue, whether he's a face or a heel, typical Del Rio monologue. Thankfully, CM Punk came out, and it's amazing. You compare a guy like CM Punk, it's almost as if face or heel, some would argue he's a little better as a heel, character-wise and on the mic, but face or heel, he can hold his own, and he can always deliver. Del Rio, on the other hand, I look at a guy like Del Rio that they insist on making him world champion yet again, and what happens? I mean, this guy just doesn't. Like I said with CM Punk, face or heel, it works. Del Rio, it's like, I don't know. Hearing him talk is like, it's like he's trying to put a square peg into a round hole. He just doesn't have it. I can't take him serious. I can't listen to any of his promos, and take him seriously as whether it be a heel or a face. I mean, it's something I've continued to stress, and I just want to play a little sample here of a relatively recent promo featuring Del Rio, with bickering a little bit with Zeb Coulter. And now, when you listen to, I mean, albeit he's a baby face here at this time, but to me that doesn't matter. The way he projects himself on the mic, to me, it just, you can't take it seriously. And I think here's a short example of that lackluster ability that, to me, is just, it makes Dolph Ziggler overrated, or I'm sorry, makes Del Rio overrated in that regard.
No, I'm not through talking. Yes, no, I'm not talking. I'm not through talking. Your time to talk is over. Now it's time for you to shut up. America doesn't belong to you. America doesn't belong to me. This is the greatest country on earth because it belongs to everyone. Loser! I'm no different than you. And I'm no different than you, big mouth. descend from immigrants.
Get out! Get
We
out!
are here for the same reason. We want to provide our families with a better life. This is a land of opportunity. We're here with the promise that if we
All right,
work hard,
that's
we can
enough.
make it.
Let's cut that off. I mean, I can't. When I listen to the guy talk like that, it just I can't take him seriously at all. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, whether he's a face or a heel, regardless, he's bickering there. And when a guy like CM Punk comes out, it's like, it's like a revelation to me. It's and it does wonder. It was a nice interruption. It's one of those interruptions. Like, thank God. And to me, when I look at the World Heavyweight Champion, I don't want to have to think that when somebody else comes out. I want the World Heavyweight Champion to be able to deliver on the mic. And if he can't, you have a mouthpiece, a good mouth, Paul Heyman, to do the job. Now, so anyways, Punk makes, he offers the challenge. Essentially, he's turned face now. Throughout the night, we see him, not totally ditch Paul Heyman, but kind of say, you know what, I want to handle things on my own. I don't want you out in the ring. And he even foreshadows something rather interesting, saying, I don't need your help like Brock Lesnar does. Which is rather interesting to me. But anyways, that match is made, that's declared the main event later on in the show. Now moving along. Throughout the night, a couple times they had nice video packages of RVD returning, which was good, a good touch. It was, it definitely got me ready to, knowing who RVD is, obviously showing some memories of good old days, with him, doing his 5-star frog splash and some other insane moves that RVD was known for doing. It was great to, see that video package, and it makes, obviously Money in the Bank is like a must buy for almost for that reason alone, that RVD is returning. But those video packages are definitely vital for some people, who may not know who RVD is. I mean, as sad as it is, I mean, there's some people who don't even know who RVD is. Some of the, when I think of those people, people who are children who got in the product, mainly because of John Cena or something, only in the recent years. So, that was good because these people, they should be given an idea of who RVD is. So, that was good. And then also you had Christian return tonight, which was cool, but, to me he belongs in the main event picture, and I've said that before. Unfortunately, it's probably hurt him, in the past couple of years that he's had trouble staying healthy at times, and, that's probably held him back. But, last year he was Intercontinental Champion for a short time, and now it appears he's going to be maybe back in that picture, sort of that mid-card picture, and to me that's not cool to me, because he should be in the main event picture, and he could easily take the place of a guy like Del Rio, and probably have a better feud with Ziggler than Del Rio, for obvious reasons that I've, continued to point out here on TW Wrestling Talk. Christian, is solid on the mic, face or heel, great in-ring performer. Need I say more about Christian? Well, unfortunately, he's been underutilized over the years. So, and now it's like he's kind of in that mid-card shuffle yet again once he comes back, and to me that's unfortunate. But, he's at least back. I mean, that's better than not having him there at all, I guess. Now moving along. I'm trying to keep the chronology I might go out of order a little bit here with as far as the events that happened here. Um, there was throughout the night there was this whole McMahon and Triple H kind of family dilemma. You know, we'll see how it continues to develop over the the coming weeks and whatnot. Um, Vince, Vince sees things one way, Triple H sees things another. Stephanie McMahon sees things another way, and it's like they want people to all three of them, they want people to listen to them um, more, and not others, and whatever. But there was a Divas segment. Some people lauded this segment, and I eh, my feelings were about it. I mean, I just don't think, I think the Divas Championship, the Divas division in general is watered down. I've talked about this on the last edition of TW Wrestling Talk after Payback. Um, I just don't think I've been shown enough. See, the thing is, I want to be shown enough before I can say, all right, yeah, put the belt on them. And that goes for all the championships. And there's a certain amount of, stuff, for lack of a better term, that I want to see someone show me before you just put the belt on them. And to me, AJ hasn't totally shown me that, she'd make a great Divas champion yet. Caitlyn, when they made sense. She can wrestle. She can wrestle very well. She's got, she's kind of got she's got a strength advantage over other divas. She's not just all about looks. Um, but she actually has some talent there to me. All these other divas, I just don't really see that. Divas like Trish Stratus, who had that in-ring talent. Um, Lita had that talent. I mean, there were divas out there that Mickey James, they could wrestle a good match, and there are times I think that they should let a diva like Tamina come in and be more of a factor than an AJ, because the divas division is not going to be very legitimate if you have just divas that aren't great wrestlers facing each other all the time. And one good wrestling diva against a wrestling, it's not gonna add up. So that's the way I see that. Um, Now this Divas segment was interesting. For some obvious reasons. I mean, Stephanie McMahon interrupted, and that was the main emphasis of the promo. That she's gonna Stephanie McMahon says that AJ Lee has to act like more like a Divas champion and whatever, and then of course Caitlyn then came out and she ran after AJ Lee and attacked her. Um, and this segment is notable and probably going to be heavily searched on YouTube because there was a slight wardrobe malfunction. Um, yeah, there was in part of Caitlyn, the camera after AJ Lee kind of runs out of the ring. Of course, they show Caitlyn, and I mean, a lot of pretty I mean, I didn't really. It just caught me by surprise when I saw it. I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. And it looks like we've got a slight wardrobe malfunction. And I found it funny because the camera then seemed to quickly cut away from it, and then the screen went black for a couple seconds. So I wonder if that had anything to do with it. But with maybe they're trying to cover it up or something. But that was for many, that was one of the highlights of the night. I mean, I'm not saying it was for me or anything. I'm not going there, but whatever. Moving on. John Cena. came out, and I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that that was, you know, a typical John Cena monologue that, you know, at this point just feels like, you know, okay, waste of time, just wrap it up already and get out of the ring. Well, it's, you know, eventually he wrapped it up, thankfully, um, and Mark Henry came out because throughout the night they were saying, is Mark Henry going to retire? They had a, you know, there's been Twitter announcements and hints at Mark Henry retiring. And now I first of all I don't even follow Twitter. I don't go on spoiler sites or any of that. I watch the content. Every now and then I read, you know, I listen to videos, see what people think, you know, WWE should do, etc. But I'm not a spoiler site guy. I'm not a Twitter follower to begin with. I don't even look into that stuff. Um, but now, so I, this was news to these announcements of him possibly retiring was news to me. But then they said, you know, they were saying how he was going to come out and retire, and he's dressed up in this pink suit, um, you know, which he even joked about in his segment. You know, he comes out to the ring when John Cena's, you know, done with his whole ordeal, and so what happens is, you know, Mark Henry says, John Cena, you know, you stay in. I want you to stay here. And I mean, from the beginning, you know, Mark Henry was in tears, and I mean, if you, there's no, I don't believe you if you weren't, if you didn't buy into this at all. I mean, this was Mark Henry was, you know, this whole segment with retirement, Mark Henry, you know, it seemed entirely unscripted. And I mean, perhaps it was. I mean, maybe he had ideas of what he wanted to say here. But Mark Henry does a phenomenal job in delivering this retirement promo to all the fans. I mean, everyone was chanting for, you know, one more match. Thank you, Henry. And, you know, his tearing up here and everything, his references, the way he you know, applauds John Cena, looks back on his career. I mean, he does a phenomenal job here, and it felt like entirely from the heart. And you know, this, you know, and then at one point, like, everybody was silent, and they were listening to what Mark Henry had to say. As you know, this was it. Mark Henry's career was going to be over. He was going to retire. And John Cena, you know, at the end, you know, he wanted John Cena to stay out there for the whole thing. John Cena's there, you know, doing his goofy, you know, goofy goody good clap, or, you know, the whole time. And you know, then John Cena gets in the ring with him. He holds up his WWE Championship with Mark Henry at the end. Um, and you know, this is it's a special moment in the WWE universe. Um, and then, you know, John Cena and Mark Henry, they go to embrace, and then wait a minute, World's Strongest Slam. Mark Henry had everybody. I don't care what people saw. Maybe they looked at spoiler sites and they thought, oh, maybe this is fake. You listen. You look at the audience. You listen to them. You listen how they all got silent. Mark Henry had everybody in the arena fooled. They had practically everybody watching at home fooled. And this was a phenomenal job by Mark Henry. Into the World's Strongest Slam. I couldn't believe it. Again, I don't look at any spoiler sites or anything. I didn't look at Twitter or any of that. So I thought this was true stuff. It all seemed improvised, and it probably mostly was on Mark Henry's part. This whole segment. Now, and see, the thing that makes this segment rather interesting, and again, I've been saying how sometimes simply the result is like everything, because because this segment here was like, it was supposed to be like, a real thing. Mark Henry really retiring in real life, done, you know, being on the active roster for WWE. So you everybody's way of thinking changes when you listen to a segment like that. It's like, okay, you know what? The script is put aside now. Like when Edge retired and did his speech. The scripts are not a part of this at this point. It's time to listen. Mark Henry. He's not a heel anymore now. This is Mark Henry, the man, not just the WWE performer. So the mode of thinking changes here at this point. And and then they go to hug, and then all of a sudden, World's Strongest Slam, and it's like, whoa. And your mode of thinking was like just in this big state of of applauding Mark Henry the man for retiring and what he did. People were tearing up, getting emotional, and then it's like, wait a minute, that was a fake job there. Did that really just happen? And that was, I mean, that was one of the greatest highlights of the year thus far.
That was awesome.
I mean, Mark Henry had practically everybody fooled, myself, and that moment was shocking, and it was because it was just like, Mark Henry did such a great job with that, and it made it that much better when we realized that, oh well, looks like his career's still going, and he said he had a lot left in the tank, and this is what he does, and it made it that much better, and the fact that John Cena was the victim. It seems like whenever John Cena's like the victim of like a surprise attack like that, it's like a bad segment turned gold. Like when Ryback, the night after WrestleMania this year, the night after last year's WrestleMania, when Brock Lesnar F5'd, he faked John Cena out and then into an F5 when he was going to shake his hand, and then he just F5'd him. And it was a huge segment. Ryback doing the shell shock the night after WrestleMania. It was like a repeat of the year before, but it was Ryback doing his finishing maneuver then. And then this was a different circumstance, but it was great. It's like the majority, like whenever John Cena's in something interesting, it's like it's because he's getting attacked by someone, and it's because like that's like the ultimate explanation point, when like somebody out of nowhere just attacks John Cena, the so-called face of the company. And it was quite an awesome moment when the way Mark Henry did it under those circumstances.
That was awesome.
It was awesome, and it was unbelievable. And as they were going to the commercial break, you could hear the whole tone of the commentators where Michael Cole's was like, what's gonna happen next is this unbelievable Monday Night Raw continues. It was a little funny in some ways too. So that was a big highlight. And now, of course, the two of them are going to go at it Money in the Bank, which unfortunately John Cena will probably win anyways, and just be another. This might turn out to, unfortunately, be another stupid, John Cena, wallop here at the end of the day when Money in the Bank rolls around. This might just be the fill time, unfortunately, and next week Cena can come out to the ring, just like it never happened, do his same old shtick, and and things might suck after that as far as this angle goes. But as far as that moment goes, that was incredible. and definite credit goes to Mark Henry for that. Um, and WWE for thinking of the idea, of course, but Mark Henry executed magnificently here. Um, Now, other than that, I mean, later on in the evening, that was followed by another rather interesting moment, and of course, Del Rio and CM Punk were set to face in the main event, and I mean, and that's going all right, whatever. Um, at that point, I'm thinking something had to happen. I figured that Ziggler was going to get involved in some way. Um, he hadn't been involved in the show up to that point, and of course, at one point, Del Rio starts running out. Um, Cowardly heel. Just not the kind of heel that WWE needs. We have enough cowardly heels, and it's silly. The good heels to me are your Brock Lesnar's, your Big Shows. The guys are more bent on destruction, and it's rather than cowards. I mean, to me, a coward heel should not be a main event heel. That's the way I think about it for the most part. Your more dominant guys should be the heels, and good wrestlers who aren't bland in their style. So, that's opportunists perhaps, but not guys that walk out of main event matches and stuff like that. That's a joke to me. Of course, then in comes Dolph Ziggler attacking Del Rio up near the stage. Um, they and then they go off site, off camera, backstage, whatever you want to call it. And then CM Punk's standing alone in the ring. And then out of nowhere, yes, his Lesnar's music hits. It's only been going a month, and already he's back. I mean, he might not be back next week, but his music hits. He comes out. He grabs a microphone. He acts like he's gonna talk, and then F5. No, he wasn't. He wasn't gonna talk all along. He just came out, tricked him, did an F5. It was a couple tricks tonight. And that was, I mean, it was clever in its own way. It wasn't like the Mark Henry deal where this does all this talking, this, but in its own way, it was a nice, little fake out by Brock Lesnar. And he puts him in the he gets him in the F5, and essentially, that set up the CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar story.
That was awesome.
And it was an awesome way to end the night. What more can you say? These two guys can definitely have a great match. People are speculating at SummerSlam, obviously, to strengthen, Lesnar with the big pay-per-views typically, and SummerSlam's one of them. Of course, he was a part of it last year, so that makes sense. You already got RVD at Money in the Bank. You probably got enough going there that they could maybe stretch this feud out and eventually build up for a match between them at SummerSlam. So that should be this should be a rather interesting feud. The whole reference earlier in the show with CM Punk, saying that he didn't need Paul Heyman out there like Brock Lesnar did to help him win matches and yada yada. That was the kind of the catalyst, I guess you could say. And I guess before apparently then Brock Lesnar was already there at the arena. If you think about it in terms of logic, he was already there. I mean, they were in. I mean, what did would Brock Lesnar really have heard that at home, sitting at home or something, then and driven down to oh, you know what, let's quick go to the arena. I gotta got F5 CM Punk after that. Yeah. So, if you think about it, though, there was a slight loophole maybe, but not a big deal, I guess. Maybe maybe Paul Heyman had Lesnar on hand in case anything, like that happened, and he had a reason to go out there, I guess, and F5 him and set up this feud. Um, it'll be rather interesting. Now, rather interesting to see what goes down between these two. Because Lesnar's not quite as known for strong mic work. I think he could do a fine job. But with Paul Heyman as essentially his mouthpiece, as Brock Lesnar seems to never talk on the mic, albeit if it's like a couple lines, now the dynamic here is that Paul Heyman doing talking for Brock Lesnar, he might who's be in the ring sparring with CM Punk, and Paul Heyman, full fledged heel manager, obviously, you know, you got to go one way or the other here, and I don't see how Paul Heyman now doesn't kind of just totally forget the whole best in the world concept with CM Punk and admiring his work, and things have got to turn here, it seems. So Paul Heyman, there's gonna have to be some a divide between the two, and so it'll be interesting to see how things unfold there. Um, we got to keep watching for the Triple H, Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon ordeal. Um, I would expect that could get interesting maybe. Um, and yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, see how Dolph Ziggler's babyface character develops. Um, I would expect that he's going to be ditching AJ and and Biggie Langston. Yeah, tell him to kind of get out of their lives or something, get out of his life or something like that. Um, we'll see how that goes. Because obviously AJ Lee, you don't see her turning babyface, and Ziggler just turned babyface. This, I mean, is against Del Rio being world champion as I am. Perhaps Ziggler could quickly win it back. Um, at least Ziggler may now go out on his own the way he should be. He could strengthen himself as a baby face in this company. And I think, and perhaps this is going to work out for the better for Dolph Ziggler if he becomes champion again soon. And, even though I just don't think that Del Rio is a guy that should be put in that, that should be in that position that he's in. And that there's other guys that could easily be in that position and, do a better job. That's the bottom line. That's what I say there. So, with that in mind, that'll wrap things up for this edition of TW Wrestling Talk. As always, just continue to stay tuned. And, who knows, one of the next upcoming episodes of TW Wrestling Talk could feature more than just my voice. So we'll, if that happens suddenly, don't be alarmed, I guess, is the best way to put that. But either way, just continue to tune into TW Wrestling Talk as, we'll continue to hopefully have a lot to talk about as we did after this edition of Monday Night Raw. So, thanks for tuning in as always, and I encourage any feedback, any comments, questions as always.